You know we are not your parents, she said bluntly. You are just a child we decided to help. You don't belong here, and you should never forget that. Purity, now 11 years old, stared at her mother in confusion and fear. She couldn't understand why Chiamaka was suddenly so different. Why the woman who had once loved her now spoke to her with such bitterness. In the quiet village of Ekulu, life moved slowly, with people knowing each other well and traditions deeply rooted in their everyday lives. Among the villagers lived a young girl named Chiamaka. She was known not just for her beauty, but also for her attitude. Chiamaka was the only child of her parents, who worked hard to provide for her. Despite their struggles, they were proud of her beauty, and she grew up hearing constant compliments about her looks. From a young age, Chiamaka began to believe she was different from everyone around her. She would walk through the village with her head held high, her shoulders back, and a sense of pride that set her apart from other young girls. Her confidence bordered on arrogance, and while some admired her confidence, many found her behavior troubling. Chiamaka wasn't interested in making friends, although many girls her age admired her and wished to be close to her. She turned them away. When they tried to talk to her, she would dismiss them, saying they weren't worthy of her attention. You don't measure up to my standards, she would say, her voice filled with disdain. This behavior earned her a reputation, and soon everyone in the village knew of her arrogance. One girl, however, managed to get closer to Chiamaka. Her name was Oge. Unlike Chiamaka, Oge was gentle, kind-hearted, and always willing to help others. She admired Chiamaka and believed that beneath her proud exterior, there was a person worth knowing. When Chiamaka saw that Oge wanted to be her friend, she agreed, but under certain conditions. From that moment on, Oge was more of a servant than a friend. Chiamaka would call her over and immediately start giving her tasks to complete. Oge, you should wash my clothes. If you want to be my friend, you must prove yourself, she would say with a smile, and Oge, eager to please, would do as she told, thinking that this was the price of friendship. Not only would Oge wash Chiamaka's clothes, but she also fetched water for her, swept her house, and even ran errands to the market. Oge was willing to do anything Chiamaka asked because she believed that one day Chiamaka would see her as a true friend. Oge's parents and other villagers watched this behavior with growing concern. They tried to warn her, advising her to stop allowing herself to be treated this way. Oge, they would say, don't you see that Chiamaka doesn't care about you? She only uses you. A true friend wouldn't treat you this way. But Oge, blinded by her loyalty, refused to listen. She thought that with time, Chiamaka would come to appreciate her efforts. She believed that by helping Chiamaka, she was building a lasting friendship. However, Chiamaka's behavior only grew worse. The more Oge did for her, the more Chiamaka looked down on her, seeing her as nothing more than someone to carry out her wishes. As time passed, the villagers grew increasingly vocal. They couldn't bear the thought of watching Oge continue to humiliate herself. Some would pull her aside when they saw her in the village, telling her she was worth more than what Chiamaka made her to feel. Oge, you are a kind and good girl, they would say. You deserve someone who respects you. Stop letting Chiamaka use you. But Oge remained hopeful, believing that one day Chiamaka would realize the depth of her loyalty. However, that day never came. Eventually, Chiamaka left the village, having gained admission into a university. Her parents were thrilled, hoping that education would bring out the best in her and that maybe she would return a changed person. When Chiamaka came back to Ekulu during a break, Oge was excited to see her. She believed that they could pick up from where they left off and perhaps become closer than ever. But the Chiamaka who returned was different. Her time away from the village had only strengthened her sense of superiority. Now, with her experience of city life and university education, she looked down even more on the villagers. When Oge tried to visit her, Chiamaka would give her cold looks and make dismissive remarks. Oge, you shouldn't come around here anymore, she said one day, her tone sharp and unfriendly. We are not on the same level. You don't belong here. These words stung, and Oge felt a deep hurt in her heart. Finally, realizing the truth, Oge knew she had to let go. She walked away, her heart heavy but her spirit strong. She decided to focus on her own life and stop trying to earn Chiamaka's approval. From that day on, she chose her path, one free from Chiamaka's shadow, determined to find friends who valued her for who she was. In her second year at the university, Chiamaka's life had taken a new turn. She was no longer the naive village girl who once walked around Ekuru with her head held high. Now, she was a young woman, moving in a circle of people who saw her differently. Chiamaka was dating a guy known as Zadi. He wasn't just any student. He was one of the most feared and respected guys on the campus. Zadi had a way of commanding attention wherever he went, and many people stayed out of his way. Chiamaka liked the attention that came with being Zadi's girlfriend. For her, it was proof that she was special, that she stood out among all other girls. She loved the feeling of power and influence. Being Zadi's girlfriend meant that she was someone important, someone to be admired and respected. Chiamaka had always believed she was beautiful, and this relationship only boosted her confidence. She formed a group with four other girls, each one handpicked by her. These girls were known for their beauty and charm, and together they were the talk of the school. Chiamaka was the leader, and she made the rules. She decided who they spoke to, where they went, and even how they dressed. If Chiamaka didn't approve, it simply didn't happen. The other girls followed her lead without question, enjoying the benefits that came from being in their group. Guys, we are always trying to get close to Chiamaka, but she turned them down without a second thought. She felt they didn't measure up to her standards, and she made no secret of this belief. When a guy approached her, she would often laugh in his face or say something hurtful to make him go away. She enjoyed seeing their reactions, watching as they walked away embarrassed or defeated. She felt powerful, untouchable, and nothing could shake that feeling. However, her determination to stay on top led her to make some questionable choices. She began spending more time with lecturers, using her charm to ensure she wouldn't fail any of her courses. Chiamaka wasn't interested in studying hard. She was only interested in the result. She knew that her beauty could open doors, and she wasn't afraid to use it to her advantage. Soon, she and her friends became known as the girls who never had to worry about their grades. They were the perfect students, and no one dared question how they achieved their results. One day, a guy named Emeka, who had once asked Chiamaka out, crossed paths with her outside the school. When Emeka had first shown interest in her, she had humiliated him in front of others, making him feel small and insignificant. She had laughed at him, called him names, and dismissed him as someone beneath her. She never imagined that Emeka would have any connection to her life after that day. What Chiamaka didn't know was that Zadi and Emeka were close friends. They shared everything, and when Emeka told Zadi about how Chiamaka had humiliated him, Zadi was intrigued. He made a bet with Emeka, promising that he would get Chiamaka to fall for him, lure her into bed, and then leave her without a word. Emeka was pleased with the idea, excited to see Chiamaka brought down to a peg. So, while Chiamaka believed that she had found Zadi who genuinely cared for her, Zadi had only seen her as a part of a game. He never loved her. He simply wanted to win the bet. But Chiamaka, unaware of all this, continued to believe in the relationship. She felt special, cherished, and she couldn't have been happier. For months, Chiamaka and Zadi's relationship seemed perfect. She trusted him, felt secure with him, and never doubted his intentions. Then one day, she visited his lodge, just like she had done many times before. They spent time together, and things went further than they had in the past. Chiamaka believed it was a sign of their deepening connection. She thought Zaddy loved her, that he saw her as someone special. But the next day, everything changed. Zaddy's behavior became cold and distant. He stopped replying to her messages, ignored her calls, and avoided her on campus. Confused and hurt, Chiamaka confronted him, desperate to understand what had gone wrong. But Zaddy's response shattered her. "It's over, Chiamaka," he said, his tone emotionless. "You are not my type. I was never serious about you." His words pierced her heart, and for the first time in her life, Chiamaka felt true heartbreak. She had always thought about herself as untouchable, someone who could never be hurt. But now, she realized how wrong she had been. She went home that day, her spirit broken, her confidence shattered. Not long after this painful breakup, a strike was announced, and all students were sent home. Chiamaka returned to Ikulu, but she couldn't shake off the sadness that had settled in her heart. When she got home, she tried to act as though everything was fine. She laughed with her parents, told them stories about school, and pretended that she was the same confident girl she had always been. But deep down, she knew something was wrong. She began to feel sick, tired, and weak. Days passed, and her condition didn't improve. Finally, she decided to go to the hospital to find out what was wrong with her. She went alone, not wanting to worry her parents. At the hospital, the doctor examined her and then asked her to take a few tests. She waited nervously, hoping that it was just a minor illness, something that would go away with medicine. But when the results came back, she was shocked to discover she was pregnant. Chiamaka's heart sank. She was devastated, unable to believe what she was hearing. The reality of her situation hit her like a storm. She was carrying Zaddy's child, the child of a man who had used her and then abandoned her. She couldn't bear the thought. When she returned home, her parents noticed something was off. They asked her if she was okay, if something was bothering her, but Chiamaka couldn't tell them the truth. She forced a smile and told them she had a fever, assuring them she was fine and that the doctor had given her medication. That night, she lay in bed, unable to sleep. She tried calling Zaddy, hoping he would take responsibility or at least listen to her. But each time she dialed his number, the call didn't go through. She soon realized he had blocked her. She was alone, with no one to turn to, and the weight of her situation felt unbearable. Desperate to escape, she told her parents she wanted to go to Benin, to stay with a friend and find a job while waiting for the strike to end. They agreed, happy that she was thinking about something productive. A few days later, she packed her bags and left for Benin, determined to find a way out of her predicament. In Benin, she confided in her friend, who took her to a local hospital. Chiamaka wanted to have an abortion. She believed it was the only way to put everything behind her and move on with her life. But after examining her, the doctor gave her grim news. "You are not fit for an abortion," he said, his voice serious. "If you try to go through with it could endanger your life." The fear in Chiamaka's heart grew. She had no choice but to keep the child, but the thought filled her with anger and resentment. She hated the life growing inside her, seeing it as a reminder of the betrayal she had suffered. She convinced herself that the child was trying to ruin her life, that it was responsible for all her pain. Each time her parents called her to check on her, she pretended everything was fine. She assured them she was well, but she was busy with work and didn't need them to visit. She couldn't let them see the truth. She was determined to keep her secret, to handle things on her own. After long 9 months, she gave birth to a baby girl, but instead of feeling joy, she looked at the child with disgust. She felt no connection, no love, only bitterness. "You came to destroy my life," she whispered, her heart filled with anger. When she left the hospital, Chiamaka made a decision. In the dead of the night, she took her daughter to an orphanage, placing her in front of the building. She rang the bell and quickly walked away. leaving her child behind without a second glance. With her burden lifted, Chiamaka returned to her village. She put on a brave face, acted as if nothing had happened, and prepared herself to return to school once the strike was over. The following week, Chiamaka returned to the university. She had tried her best to put the past behind her, focusing on her studies and moving forward. However, her heart still carried the scars of her experiences, and she knew it would take time for the pain to fade. She walked onto campus, hoping to go about her day unnoticed, but fate had other plans. As she strode through the main walkway, and she noticed two familiar faces up ahead, Zadie and Emeka. Her heart skipped a beat, and she thought about turning around, but it was too late. They saw her, exchanged knowing glances, and stepped forward to block her path. Well, 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 look who we have here, Emeka sneered, his voice dripping with mockery. The queen of the village, the girl who thinks she's too good for everyone. Zadie chuckled, his eyes cold and unfeeling. Chiamaka, you really thought you were something special, didn't you? You thought you could walk around like you owned the place, treating people like that? Chiamaka's face flushed with embarrassment and anger. She tried to hold her ground, but their words cut deep, each one bringing up painful memories. Do you remember when you humiliated me in front of everyone? Emeka asked, his voice low but firm. I never forgot that day, and I decided I would make you pay. So I told Zadie here to make you fall for him, only for him to dump you like the cheap article that you are. Zadie smiled, crossing his arms, and it was easier than I thought, honestly. You were so desperate to feel important that you didn't even see it coming. Tears welled up in Chiamaka's eyes. She had prided herself on being strong and confident, but in that moment, she felt small and worthless. She turned away, hoping to escape the humiliation, but their laughter followed her, echoing in her mind. As she walked away, her friends came over noticing her tears. They tried to comfort her, reassuring her that she was better than those boys, but nothing they said could ease the pain. Chiamaka cried, her heart broken and her confidence shattered once again. Years passed, and with time, Chiamaka moved on from the pains and memories of the university. She focused on her studies, determined to make something of herself. Eventually, she graduated, leaving the dark days of her past behind. She went on to complete her 1 year youth service, which was required of all university graduates, hoping it would be the start of a better life. During this period, Chiamaka met a man named Kenneth. He was different from anyone she had ever known, kind, caring, and genuine. Kenneth worked for a well-known oil company, and he seemed to have a stable, successful life. Unlike the men she had known in the past, Kenneth treated her with respect and kindness. He listened to her, supported her dreams, and made her feel valued. They began dating, and with each passing day, their bond grew stronger. Kenneth loved Chiamaka deeply, and she found herself falling for him as well. After a few months of dating, Kenneth asked Chiamaka to marry him, and she said yes without hesitation. It was a dream come true, and for the first time in her life, she felt genuinely happy and at peace. Their wedding was a beautiful, joyous celebration. Friends and family gathered to witness the union, and Chiamaka felt like the luckiest woman in the world. Kenneth was a good man, and he treated her with love and respect. He even took care of his own parents and supported Chiamaka's parents as well. He was always willing to help, going above and beyond to ensure everyone around him was happy and comfortable. After their marriage, Kenneth encouraged Chiamaka to start her own business. Although she had initially thought about finding a job, Kenneth felt that she would do well running her own salon. You have a sense for beauty, Chiamaka. He told her one evening, you are talented, and I think a salon would suit you perfectly. With Kenneth's support, Chiamaka opened a salon in town. She sold high-quality hair products, offered hairstyling service, and soon gained a loyal customer base. Her business flourished, and she took pride in her work, enjoying the feeling of accomplishment that came with it. Their marriage was nearly perfect, Kenneth was patient, attentive, and always willing to listen. He made Chiamaka feel loved, cherished, and secure. They shared laughter, supported each other, and built a life filled with warmth and peace. Yet, as the years went by, there was one thing that weighed heavily on Chiamaka's heart. They had no children. They had been married for 5 years, and Chiamaka's longing for a child grew stronger with each passing day. She watched other couples with their children, feeling a pang of sadness in her heart. She had visited several hospitals with Kenneth, hoping for answers, but each doctor told them the same thing: they would have to wait. Kenneth remained hopeful, reminding her that God's time is the best, and assuring her that one day they would be blessed with children. But Chiamaka struggled to share his optimism. She couldn't shake the worry that time was slipping away. Every day, she found herself thinking about the emptiness she felt. She wanted to be a mother, to hold a child in her arms, to experience the joys of parenthood. Her husband tried his best to comfort her, but she couldn't let go of the longing in her heart. One afternoon, while working at her salon, Chiamaka overheard a woman talking on the phone. The woman was discussing adoption, explaining to someone that she had recently adopted a child and how happy it had made her family. Chiamaka's heart raced as she listened, and an idea began to form in her mind. Could adoption be the answer to her prayers? That evening, she brought up the idea with Kenneth. "I think we should consider adoption," she said gently, hoping he would be open to the suggestion. But Kenneth was hesitant. He had always dreamed of having his own children, and he wasn't sure if adoption was right for them. Days passed, and Chiamaka continued to talk about adoption. Kenneth could see how much it meant to her, and after seeing her enthusiasm, he finally agreed. They sought guidance from a Catholic priest, who directed them to an orphanage run by the church. After going through the necessary steps, they were introduced to a 10-year-old girl named Purity. She was beautiful, with a bright smile that lit up her face and a warmth that made everyone around her feel at ease. Chiamaka and Kenneth felt an instant connection to her, as if she had always been a part of their lives. With the adoption finalized, they took Purity home, ready to give her all the love and care she deserved. They treated her as their own daughter, ensuring she had everything she needed. They enrolled her in one of the best schools in town, proud of her intelligence and eagerness to learn. Purity thrived in her new environment, and Kenneth and Chiamaka couldn't have been happier. Purity quickly became the center of the world. They doted on her, showering her with love and attention, and she responded with warmth and affection. She was a bright, loving child, and her presence filled their home with joy. Chiamaka and Kenneth finally felt complete, their family whole with Purity as their daughter. Purity became the pride and joy of Kenneth and Chiamaka's family. Both sets of grandparents adored her, seeing her as a blessing and a symbol of hope. Chiamaka's parents, as well as Kenneth, frequently reminded them of the importance of treating Purity with love and respect. They believed that by caring for her, they would invite more blessings, even the possibility of a child of their own one day. They often said to Chiamaka, "Purity could be the point of contact for your own children to come. Love her as you would do your own." Chiamaka and Kenneth promised they would always look after Purity and make sure she lacked nothing. As time went on, Purity thrived in her new home. Chiamaka and Kenneth were proud parents, doting on their little girl and ensuring she had all she needed. Their love for Purity was genuine, and it was clear to everyone who saw them. Their neighbors often commented on how wonderful Chiamaka and Kenneth were as parents, admiring the warmth and joy that seemed to fill their home. Kenneth, who sometimes had to travel for business, knew his wife would take good care of their daughter Purity whenever he was away. They had built a happy, stable life together. One day, after returning from a trip, Kenneth noticed that something was different about his wife Chiamaka. She looked tired and a bit worn out, which was unusual for her. She seemed quieter, and her energy was lower than usual. Concerned, Kenneth suggested they go to the hospital to find out what was wrong. The next morning, They arrived at the hospital, where the doctor ran some tests. After waiting anxiously, the doctor finally called them in with a smile. "Congratulations, Mrs. Chiamaka," he said. "You are pregnant." Chiamaka and Kenneth exchanged stunned glances, hardly able to believe what they had just heard. Joy filled their hearts, and they couldn't contain their excitement. They thanked the doctor, feeling as though a long-held dream had come true. As they left the hospital, they walked hand in hand, their hearts full of gratitude and happiness. The unexpected blessing made them feel even more complete as a family. When they arrived home, the first person they told was Purity. She listened carefully, her eyes glowing with wide excitement. She threw her arms around Chiamaka, saying, "I can't wait to meet my new brother or sister." Her happiness only added to the joy Kenneth and Chiamaka felt. It was clear that Purity would welcome her new sibling with open arms. As the months went by, Chiamaka's pregnancy progressed smoothly. She continued working at her salon, although she found the chores at home and the demands of her business becoming more and more exhausting. She struggled to keep up, her energy waning out as her pregnancy advanced. Kenneth noticed her growing fatigue and suggested they get someone to help with the houseworks so that Chiamaka could focus on her health and their salon. He reached out to an agency and found a woman named Queen, who came highly recommended. Queen was an older woman with a warm smile and gentle nature. She agreed to work as the housekeeper, helping with the chores and looking after Purity. Whenever Chiamaka and Kenneth were busy or away, Queen would arrive each morning and leave in the evening, allowing her to spend nights at her own home. From the start, Queen proved to be reliable and hardworking. She kept the house spotless, prepared meals, and made sure Purity was cared for. Her calm and caring manner made her a welcome presence in the home. Chiamaka was grateful for Queen's help, as it allowed her to focus more on her own well-being and her salon, knowing that Purity was in good hands. One afternoon, Chiamaka received an unexpected visitor, her old friend Chika. Chika was one of her best friends from university, and the two of them shared many memories. They had laughed, cried, and celebrated together, making Chika's visit a welcome surprise. As they sat together in the living room, Chika began to share what had been happening in her life. She revealed that she had recently gone through a divorce. "My husband treated me terribly," she said, her voice full of bitterness. "He brought women into our home, disrespected me, and made my life miserable. I couldn't take it anymore, so I had to leave." Chiamaka listened sympathetically, feeling sorry for her friend's pain. She hugged Chika, offering words of comfort and encouragement. However, Chika didn't reveal the full truth. She left out of parts where her husband had caught her cheating, choosing instead to paint herself as a victim. In truth, Chika had always been envious of Chiamaka, even back in their university days. She had secretly believed that she was more deserving of happiness and success than Chiamaka. She couldn't understand why Chiamaka, who she viewed as arrogant, had ended up with a loving husband, a beautiful home, and now even the blessing of a pregnancy. The jealousy that simmered beneath Chika's surface remained hidden as she maintained the appearance of a supportive friend. But inside, her thoughts were darker. She resented seeing Chiamaka's happiness and began to wonder if there was a way to disrupt it. She felt that Chiamaka's seemingly perfect life was undeserved and couldn't bear to watch her friend enjoy it while she struggled with her own troubles. In her mind, she convinced herself that Chiamaka's life wasn't as flawless as it appeared. She thought, "Chiamaka is pretending to be nice, but I know who she really is." Chika continued to act like the caring friend, laughing with Chiamaka and reminiscing about their old days over glasses of wine. They talked about their time at the university, shared stories about their experiences, and laughed at silly memories. But beneath Chika's smile, her jealousy festered, twisting her thoughts as she silently plotted. She wondered if there was a way to plant seeds of doubt, to shake the foundation of Chiamaka's happiness. As the evening wore on, Chika raised her glass in a toast to her friend. Congratulations, Chi, she said, a smile on her lips but something cold in her eyes. You have a beautiful family and a wonderful life. I'm truly happy for you. Chiamaka smiled, feeling grateful to have a friend like Chika who cared about her happiness. She had no idea of the resentment Chika held inside or the thoughts that lurked beneath her friend's kind words. To Chiamaka, Chika was simply an old friend who had come to celebrate her joy, and she felt touched by the support. After spending a few more hours catching up, Chika stood up, saying it was time for her to leave. She hugged Chiamaka tightly, promising to visit again soon. Take care of yourself, she said, glancing at Chiamaka's growing belly, and let me know if you need anything. As Chika walked away from Chiamaka's home, her mind was racing with thoughts and schemes. She was determined to find a way to disrupt her friend's happiness, but she knew she needed to be careful. Chika decided to give herself time to think things through and to wait for the right moment. She would play the role of the caring friend for now, keeping her true intentions hidden. Chiamaka, unaware of her friend's jealousy, closed the door with a smile, feeling content after their time together. She had no idea that Chika's visit was not entirely innocent or that her old friend carried envy in her heart. For Chiamaka, it was just a happy reunion with someone who had shared her past, someone who she believed wished her well. As she prepared for bed that night, she felt grateful for the life she had built with Kenneth, for purity, and for the little one growing inside her. She was surrounded by love, support, and friendship in her heart. She felt at peace. Days turned into weeks, and Kenneth couldn't ignore how often Chika, Chiamaka's friend, was visiting their home. It seemed like every other day, Chika would drop by, sometimes without calling ahead. She would stay for hours, chatting with Chiamaka, catching up on stories, and even joining them for meals. Kenneth began to feel uneasy. He wasn't sure why, but something about Chika's frequent visits didn't sit right with him. One evening, after dinner, Kenneth decided to talk to his wife about it. My love, he said gently, I've noticed Chika had been coming around a lot lately. I don't want to interfere, but I think you should be cautious. Not everyone who smiles at you has good intentions. Chiamaka looked at him, slightly surprised. But Chika is my very good friend, honey. We've known each other ever since university days. I don't believe she would ever want to hurt me or our family. Kenneth sighed, sensing Chiamaka's resistance. I understand she's your friend, but sometimes even friends can have hidden motives. Just be careful, okay? Don't trust too easily. Chiamaka nodded, though she didn't take his warning to heart. She had known Chika for a long time, and in her mind, there was no reason to doubt her friend's loyalty. She didn't see Chika as a threat, only a friend who was going through a tough time and needed support. Even Queen, their housekeeper, had mentioned it to her in passing, suggesting she be wary of people who might not have her best interest at heart. But Chiamaka brushed it off, convinced that Chika was trustworthy. One day, Chika came to visit Chiamaka at the salon. As usual, they sat in Chiamaka's office, talking and laughing as they caught up. It was a busy day, and Purity was there helping her mother with small tasks around the salon. Chika hadn't seen Purity before, as Chiamaka often kept her daughter away from visitors, wanting to protect her from too many curious eyes. When Chika saw Purity, she looked surprised. Chiamaka, I don't understand. I can't remember you having a child back when we were in the university, she said, a hint of curiosity in her voice. And I haven't seen this girl around your house before. Who is she? Chiamaka hesitated for a moment, wondering how much to share, but she trusted Chika and decided to be honest. This is Purity, she said with a smile. She's my daughter. Chika raised an eyebrow, clearly taken aback. Your daughter? But I don't remember you ever mentioning her. Is she? Did you adopt her? Realizing she couldn't hide the truth, Chiamaka nodded. Yes, I adopted her. She's been with us for a while now. Kenneth and I love her dearly, and she's a part of our family. Chika's expression shifted. She glanced at Purity, who was standing quietly nearby, and then turned back to Chiamaka with a look of disbelief. So, this child you've been treating like a princess, she's not even yours? She's someone else's, a child born out of who knows what kind of situation. Chiamaka frowned, taken aback by the tone of Chika's words. Yes, she's adopted, but she's still my daughter. Kenneth and I see her as our own. Chika shook her head, a hint of disdain creeping in her voice. Chiamaka, have you really thought this through? You are treating her like loyalty, but she's not your blood. What happens when you have a child of your own? Do you really want an adopted child to inherit everything that belongs to you and Kenneth? Think about it. Chiamaka felt a punch of discomfort. She had never thought about things in that way. To her, Purity was her daughter, the one she had raised and loved. But Chika's words began to stir doubt in her heart. Chika leaned in, her voice low and insistent. A word of advice, my friend. Don't make the mistake of letting this girl believe she's equal to your own child. When you have your own child, how will you feel seeing her sharing everything with an adopted child? Don't let her forget where she came from. Remember, she's not your flesh and blood. Chiamaka sat quietly, absorbing her friend's words. She hadn't considered any of this before, but now the thought began to settle in her mind. She nodded slowly, saying, I see what you're saying. I hadn't thought about it like that before. Chika smiled, satisfied that her words were having an effect. I'm only saying this because I care about you, Chiamaka. I don't want you to regret this decision later on. Treat her like the stranger she is. A word is enough for the wise. With that, Chika leaned back, confident that she had planted the seeds of doubt in her friend's heart. They continued their conversation, laughing and reminiscing as though nothing had happened. But Chiamaka's mind was elsewhere, filled with Chika's words and the doubts they had sparked. From that day on, Chiamaka's attitude toward Purity began to change. Her warmth faded, replaced by a coldness that Purity couldn't understand. One evening, Chiamaka looked at Purity, her expression hard and unfailing. You know we are not your parents, she said bluntly. You are just a child we decided to help. You don't belong here, and you should never forget that. Purity, now 11 years old, stared at her mother in confusion and fear. She couldn't understand why Chiamaka was suddenly so different. Why the woman who had once loved her now spoke to her with such bitterness. She felt a deep sadness, her heart breaking as she tried to process her mother's harsh words. Chiamaka continued, her voice cold, and from now on, you will be responsible for helping around the house. Don't expect to be treated like some kind of princess. We are not here to serve you. Purity's heart sank, and she fought back tears as she nodded. She didn't want to upset her mother any further, so she kept her pain hidden, swallowing the hurt that filled her heart. She began doing chores around the house, scrubbing floors, washing dishes, and cleaning rooms late into the night, all without complaints. One day, Queen the housekeeper noticed the change in Chiamaka's behavior towards Purity. She could see how Chiamaka had grown distant and harsh, and she was worried for the little girl who had once been so happy and carefree. Concerned, Queen tried to talk to Chiamaka about it, but Chiamaka cut her off, dismissing her concerns. In fact, Chiamaka was so worried that Queen might say something to Kenneth that she decided to end Queen's employment altogether. She told Queen that her services were no longer needed, saying, we don't need a stranger in our home anymore. I can manage on my own. Queen was surprised but didn't argue. She gathered her things and left, saddened by the change she had seen in the family. She prayed for Purity, hoping the little girl would find strength and comfort in her difficult time. When Kenneth returned from the business trip, he was surprised to find that Queen no longer worked for them. Why did you let her go? He asked Chiamaka. Chiamaka shrugged, trying to seem casual. We don't need her anymore. I can handle things myself, and I don't want anyone mistreating Purity in our presence. Kenneth accepted her explanation and didn't question her further. He trusted his wife's judgment and believed she was doing what was best for their family. After discussing the matter briefly, he went to bed, unaware of the changes that had been taking place in his absence. As soon as Kenneth was asleep, Chiamaka went to Purity's room, her expression stern and unforgiving. She shook the girl awake, her voice sharp as she spoke. Get up and go to the kitchen and wash the dishes. Clean the kitchen before you go to bed, she ordered. And remember, don't you dare tell my husband about any of this. If you do, I will make your life even more miserable. Purity nodded, her eyes wide with fear. She couldn't understand why her mother had become so harsh, but she knew better than to argue. She made her way to the kitchen, walking in silence as she scrubbed the dishes and cleaned the countertops. When she finally finished, she felt exhausted, her small body worn out from the chores. Returning to her room, Purity lay in bed, her hands heavy with sadness. She couldn't sleep, the pain of her mother's words echoing in her mind. She had always thought of Chiamaka as her mother, the woman who had taken her in, cared for her, and loved her. But now everything felt different. Chiamaka had changed, and Purity felt lost, wondering what she had done to deserve such treatment. As she lay there, tears streamed down her cheeks, and she sobbed quietly, clutching her pillow as though it could offer some comfort. Her world had turned upside down, and she didn't know how to fix it. She stayed awake for hours, her heart aching, until finally sleep overtook her, offering a brief escape from her sorrow. Life in Kenneth and Chiamaka's household continued, but it was no longer the peaceful, happy home it once was. Purity, once full of energy and joy, now seemed weighed down with sadness. She spent most of her time doing chores, her small hands busy with tasks that seemed never ending. From washing dishes to cleaning floors, Purity handled it all, but her heart grew heavier each day. One evening, Kenneth returned home after a long day at work. He noticed Purity looking tired and quieter than usual. Concerned, he sat beside her on the couch, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. Purity, is something wrong? He asked, his voice filled with care. You seem so quiet these days. Is there anything you want to tell me? Purity opened her mouth to speak, desperate to share her worries with her father. She wanted to tell him about how different her mother had become, how Chiamaka's once warm and loving presence had turned cold. But as she looked up, she caught sight of Chiamaka standing nearby, watching them with a stern, unyielding glare. Her mother's eyes held a silent warning, a look that seemed to say, don't you dare. Fear gripped Purity, and she felt her courage drain away. Instead of speaking up, she lowered her head and whispered, I, I just have a headache, Daddy. Kenneth frowned, sensing there was more to it, but he didn't want to push her. So he patted her back and told her to rest. All right, sweetheart, get some rest, and if it doesn't go away, we will go to the hospital. Chiamaka, watching from a distance, relaxed. She had managed to keep Purity silent, maintaining control over the secrets she didn't want Kenneth to discover. Purity, however, felt defeated. She had wanted so badly to open up to her father, to tell him about the things that troubled her heart, but her mother's cold, piercing gaze had stopped her. Meanwhile, in Chica's home, she was filled with satisfaction. She felt like she was finally getting what she wanted. The slow unraveling of her friend's family, the thought of Chiamaka's perfect life falling apart brought her a twisted sense of joy. In her mind, Chica had succeeded. She believed that her words had planted seeds of doubt and resentment in Chiamaka's heart. And now she was watching her plan take shape. Each day, she felt more pleased with herself, proud of the damage she had caused. Back at Purity's house, Purity continued with her chores, following her mother's orders without complaint. She cleaned, cooked, and walked around the house, all while carrying a sadness she couldn't explain. Her bright spirit was dimming, and even her teachers began to notice the change. At school, Purity's once impressive performance began to slip. She struggled to concentrate, her mind clouded with worries she couldn't share. Her grades dropped, and she failed several tests. Her teachers grew concerned. Noticing that the once lively girl was now withdrawn and unfocused, they tried speaking to her, asking if something was wrong, but Purity only shook her head, too afraid to reveal the truth. One afternoon, her teacher, Mrs. Benson, decided it was time to take action. She called Chiamaka, asking her to come to the school for a meeting. Chiamaka arrived, looking polished and confident as always. As she sat down with Mrs. Benson in the teacher's office, Mrs. Chiamaka, Mrs. Benson began, her tone gentle but firm. I've noticed some changes in Purity lately. Her grades have dropped, and she seemed distracted in class. Is there anything going on at home that might be affecting her? Chiamaka's expression hardened. She didn't want anyone questioning her parenting or suggesting that she was to blame. She forced a smile and replied, I don't know what could be wrong. We've provided everything for her, and she lacked nothing. Mrs. Benson nodded, sensing Chiamaka's defensive tone. Sometimes children go through phases, she offered, hoping to keep the conversation constructive. Or perhaps she just needs a little extra support and encouragement at home. Chiamaka thanked the teacher, but as she walked away, her mind was filled with irritation. She couldn't believe that her daughter's lack of effort was now reflecting poorly on her. She saw it as a betrayal, a sign that Purity was ungrateful for everything they had done for her. The frustration simmered inside her as she returned home, waiting for Purity to arrive from school. That evening, when Purity walked through the door, she was met with a furious Chiamaka. So this is what we get for all our sacrifices, Chiamaka shouted, her voice echoing through the house. Your teachers called to tell me you are failing your test, that you are not even serious about school. Purity's eyes filled with tears, and she tried to explain, but the words caught in her throat. She wanted to say that she was tired, that the constant chores had taken all her energy, but before she could speak, Chiamaka grabbed a stick and began to beat her, each strike accompanied by harsh words. You are wasting our money, making us look like fools, Chiamaka yelled. You have everything, and this is how you repay us? By failing in school? Purity cried, her small frame shaking with each hit. She didn't fight back, didn't resist. She only cried, feeling the pain of each blow, both physical and emotional. When Chiamaka finally stopped, Purity ran to her room, her heart aching and her body sore. She lay on her bed, sobbing until her tears ran dry, wondering what she had done to deserve such treatment. As night fell, Purity remained in her bed, her face wet with tears. She felt feverish, her head pounding as exhaustion overwhelmed her. She didn't even have the strength to get up and eat. Instead, she lay there, her body aching and her heart heavy, wishing for the days when her mother had loved her, when life had been filled with warmth and happiness. Later that evening, Kenneth came home. He walked through the door, expecting to see his family, but the house felt strangely quiet. Concerned, he went to Purity's room to check on her. When he opened the door, he found her lying on the bed, her face pale and her body shivering with fever. Alarmed, Kenneth rushed to her side, feeling her forehead and realizing she was burning up. Purity, what's wrong? He asked, his voice filled with worry, but Purity was too weak to respond. She only looked up at him, her eyes filled with silent pain. Kenneth's concern quickly turned to anger. He stormed out of the room, calling for Chiamaka. Chiamaka! He shouted, his voice echoing through the house. Why didn't you take Purity to the hospital? She's burning with fever. Chiamaka appeared in the hallway, taken aback by her husband's anger. She opened her mouth to explain, to say that she hadn't realized how sick Purity was, but Kenneth wasn't interested in excuses. Without another word, he lifted Purity in his arms and carried her out of the house, determined to get her the medical help she needed. They drove to the hospital in silence, Kenneth's heart pounding with worry. He couldn't understand why Chiamaka hadn't taken better care of Purity, why she had allowed things to get so bad. In his mind, Purity was his daughter, someone he had promised to protect and love. He couldn't bear to see her suffer, and he vowed to find out what was really going on. As they arrived at the hospital, Kenneth carried Purity inside. his face filled with determination. He wouldn't leave her side, refusing to let go until he knew she was safe. He had trusted Chiamaka, believed that she was caring for their family. But now, as he watched his daughter lying weak and feverish, he felt the first stirring of doubts. At the hospital, Kenneth waited anxiously as doctors examined Purity. His heart ached seeing his daughter lying on the hospital bed, pale and weak, her small body struggling. He couldn't understand why things had come to this, why Purity was so sick. He silently hoped the doctor would bring him some good news soon. Finally, a doctor approached Kenneth, his expression serious but compassionate. "Mr. Kenneth," the doctor began, "your daughter has a severe shortage of blood. Her body is extremely weak, and we need to provide her with a blood transfusion as soon as possible. If we don't act quickly, she could lose her life." Kenneth felt his heart sink, fear gripping him. He swallowed hard, trying to steady himself. "I'll give her my blood," he said, determined to save his daughter no matter what. The doctor nodded, arranging for Kenneth's blood to be tested for compatibility. But moments later, the doctor returned with a grim expression. "I'm sorry, Mr. Kenneth," he said gently, "but your blood type doesn't match Purity's. We need a perfect match, and unfortunately, yours isn't compatible." Kenneth felt a wave of helplessness wash over him. He looked around, desperate, hoping there was someone who could help. Just then, Chiamaka, who had been listening quietly, stepped forward. "I'll give her my blood," she offered, her voice steady, though her heart was racing. The doctor looked at her thoughtfully. "As her mother, there is a good chance your blood will match," he said, "but since you are pregnant, we must first conduct a few tests. We don't want to risk endangering you or your unborn child." Chiamaka agreed, her mind whirring with worry for Purity. She knew she had to do everything possible to help her daughter. The tests were quickly conducted, and the results showed that her blood was indeed a match for Purity's. Chiamaka felt a deep sense of relief, knowing she could help her daughter in this critical time. As she prepared to donate blood, Chiamaka's thoughts grew heavy with guilt and regret. She realized how harshly she had treated Purity, how she had let her heart grow cold toward the innocent child. Her mind drifted back to the many moments she had been unkind. Each memory filling her with sorrow. She knew she had made a terrible mistake, letting jealousy and fear cloud her love for her daughter. After the blood was drawn, Chiamaka found Kenneth in the waiting room. She approached him slowly, her heart pounding with regret. Without a word, she leaned against his shoulder, tears streaming down her face. "Kenneth," she whispered, her voice breaking, "please forgive me. I don't know how I let things get this bad." Kenneth looked at her, his face filled with pain and confusion. "What are you talking about, Chiamaka?" he asked, though a part of him already suspected something had been wrong. Through her tears, Chiamaka confessed everything. She told him how her friend Chica had filled her mind with doubt and bitterness, convincing her to treat Purity like an outsider. She admitted that she had allowed Chica's words to poison her heart, leading her to mistreat the daughter they had once cherished. Kenneth's face darkened, anger flashing in his eyes. "If anything happens to Purity," he said quietly but firmly, "you will see a side of me you never wanted to know. You let a friend's jealousy ruin our family, and now our daughter is lying in a hospital bed because of it." Chiamaka nodded, her heart breaking under the weight of his words. She knew she deserved his anger, knew she had failed in her role as a mother. Wiping her tears, she made her way to Purity's hospital room, determined to make things right. Purity lay unconscious on the bed, her face pale and peaceful, unaware of the turmoil her mother was going through. Chiamaka sat beside her, gently holding her small hands. "Purity," she whispered, her voice filled with sorrow, "please forgive me. I'm so sorry for everything I've done, for every harsh word and unkind look. I promise I will make it up to you, my child." As she held Purity's hand, something caught her eye. She glanced at Purity's arm and saw a small mark under her armpit. Her heart skipped a beat as she recognized the birthmark, a unique shape she had only seen on herself and her father. She stared at it in shock, memories flooding her mind, filled her with an overwhelming realization. Chiamaka's mind raced, thoughts tumbling over one another. The birthmark. It was exactly the same as hers. Only her father had this mark, and she herself bore it. Her heart pounded as her mind drifted to a time long ago, to the baby girl she had abandoned outside an orphanage in Benin all those years ago. Could it be? Could Purity be the daughter she had left behind? A cry escaped her lips as the truth struck her like a storm. Tears filled her eyes and she fell to her knees, trembling with the weight of her discovery. Kenneth entered the room, alarmed by her sudden outburst. Chiamaka, he said, moving quickly to her side. What is going on? Chiamaka's voice shook as she struggled to find the words. Kenneth, Purity, she might, she might be. Her voice trailed off as her body trembled with shock and disbelief. She clutched her chest, feeling overwhelmed by the reality of what she had just discovered. But before she could say more, a sudden sharp pain surged through her abdomen. She gasped, her hand moving to her belly. Nurses rushed in, responding to her cries, and quickly assessed the situation. They realized Chiamaka was experiencing severe complication with her pregnancy. In moments, she was placed on a stretcher and taken to a different room. Hours passed, in a blur of doctors and nurses moving in and out, their faces filled with concern. Finally, a nurse approached Kenneth, her face somber. Mr. Kenneth, she said softly, I'm afraid we couldn't save the baby. Your wife is stable, but the child was lost. Kenneth felt a surge of sorrow, his heart heavy with a loss. He sat alone in the waiting room, his thoughts filled with pain and confusion. He had lost a child, and his wife was dealing with a heartbreak of her own, struggling with the knowledge of the life she had abandoned, a life that might have found its way back to her in the most unexpected way. After 2 long days, Chiamaka regained her strength. She returned to Purity's side, sitting by her bed and holding her daughter's hand, praying that she would recover. The loss of her unborn child weighed heavily on her heart, and she knew she would carry that pain for the rest of her life. But now, all her attention was on Purity, the daughter she had wronged, the child she believed was her own flesh and blood. As she sat there, she made a silent vow to uncover the truth, to find out if Purity was truly the daughter she had once abandoned. She knew she had a long journey ahead, one filled with questions and possibly painful answers, but she was determined to make things right, to prove her love for the child who lay beside her. Days passed, and Purity slowly regained her strength. Her face, once pale and weak, regained its glow, and she began to look more like her old self. The day finally came when the doctor confirmed she was ready to go home. Kenneth and Chiamaka were overjoyed, grateful that their daughter was well enough to leave the hospital. They thanked the doctor, gathered Purity's things, and took her home with them, feeling a renewed sense of hope and relief. Back at home, things were different. Although Purity was home, she was distant from her mother. She still remembered the harshness she had faced and couldn't shake the fear that Chiamaka might still treat her the same way. She kept her distance, often staying in her room, avoiding Chiamaka as much as possible. Kenneth noticed this and felt sad for both of them. He saw the way Chiamaka tried to make amends, but he understood why Purity was hesitant. Chiamaka, however, was determined to make things right. She knew she had hurt her daughter deeply, and each time Purity looked away, her heart broke a little more. She tried speaking to Purity every day, gently asking for forgiveness. Purity, my sweet child, I am so sorry, she would say, her voice filled with regret. Please forgive me for all the pain I caused you. I will never hurt you again, I promise. But Purity remained silent, her eyes weary, unable to let go of the hurt that lingered in her heart. She didn't know if she could trust her mother again, not after all she had been through. Chiamaka's guilt grew heavier each day, and she couldn't stop thinking about how much she had failed as a mother. 2 days after Purity came home, as night fell and the house grew quiet, Chiamaka decided it was time to talk to her husband. She and Kenneth sat together in their bedroom, and she took a deep breath, preparing herself for what she needed to say. I have a confession to make. She began, her voice trembling. Please, my husband, don't judge me for what I'm about to tell you. Kenneth looked at her, his eyes filled with patience and understanding. He could see that Chiamaka was troubled, and he wanted to support her. Taking another deep breath, Chiamaka shared the painful story of her past. She told him about the time she became pregnant, the difficult decision she made, and how she had left her newborn baby at an orphanage gate in Benin. I was young and scared, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I've regretted it every day since then. Kenneth listened in silence, his expression filled with surprise and compassion. He hadn't known about this part of his wife's past, and the weight of her story left him speechless. But he reached out, gently holding her hand, letting her know that he was there for her. And now, Chiamaka continued, her voice barely a whisper, I think Purity might be the child I abandoned. When I was by her side in the hospital, I saw a birthmark on her arm. The same birthmark my father had. The same one I have. She paused, looking into Kenneth's eyes. I don't know if it's true, but I feel it in my heart. I think Purity might be my daughter. Kenneth's eyes widened as he processed her words. It was a lot to take in, but he loved Chiamaka deeply. He knew they had to find answers for the sake of their family. Then we need to find out. He said gently, if Purity is truly your daughter, we must know. Chiamaka nodded, relieved by her husband's support. Kenneth asked her for the location of the orphanage where she had left the child, and she told him it was in Benin. Together, they searched online, hoping to find more information. Kenneth quickly discovered that the orphanage, St. Charles Orphanage Home, had a branch in Lagos, the same branch from where they had adopted Purity. It all began to make sense, the pieces of the puzzle finally falling into place. That night, they decided to visit the orphanage the next day. They both knew it would be a difficult journey, but they were determined to uncover the truth. In the morning, they prepared themselves and traveled to the orphanage, each step filled with a mix of hope and fear. At St. Charles Orphanage in Benin, they spoke with a kind woman who worked there. They explained their situation, telling her about Chiamaka's past and the adoption of Purity. The woman listened carefully, nodding as she absorbed their stories. She then informed them that many children from their Benin location had been transferred to Lagos branch years ago because of a major renovation. Hearing this, Chiamaka felt a surge of hope. It seemed more likely now that Purity was indeed the child she had left behind. The woman at the orphanage suggested they do a DNA test to confirm, and they agreed. The truth was too important, and they wanted to be absolutely sure. Back in Lagos, Chiamaka and Kenneth arranged for the DNA test. Waiting for the result was agonizing, each day feeling like an eternity as they prayed for clarity. When the day finally came, Chiamaka opened the envelope with trembling hands, her heart pounding in her chest. As she read the result, tears filled her eyes. The test confirmed it. Purity was her biological daughter. Chiamaka couldn't hold back her emotions. She wept, her heart overwhelmed by the realization that the daughter she had thought lost had returned to her in the most unexpected way. Her child was alive, right beside her, and she had been given a second chance to be the mother she had failed to be all those years ago. That afternoon, when Purity returned from school, Chiamaka was waiting for her. She knelt before her daughter, her heart filled with gratitude and regret. Purity, she whispered, her voice shaking, please forgive me. Purity looked at her mother, confusion in her eyes. She didn't understand why Chiamaka was on her knees, begging her for forgiveness. Mom, she asked softly, her voice uncertain. Chiamaka took Purity's hands in hers, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry for everything I've put you through. I should have protected you, loved you the way you deserved. But I let my heart grow cold, and I let myself forget how precious you are to me. Purity's own eyes filled with tears as she listened to her mother's heartfelt words. She had longed for this moment, for the warmth and love she remembered from her early childhood. Seeing her mother's sorrow, her heart softened, and she felt the weight of forgiveness filling her soul. Mom, she whispered, her voice trembling, I forgive you. Chiamaka let out a sob, pulling Purity into her arms. They held each other tightly, tears of relief and joy flowing freely. Kenneth, who had been watching from a distance, joined them, wrapping his arms around his wife and daughter in a tender embrace. Together, they shared a moment of healing, their hearts mending as the weight of the past was finally lifted. For the first time in a long time, happiness returned to their home. The darkness that had overshadowed their family was gone, replaced by a new sense of love and unity. Chiamaka vowed to be the mother Purity had always deserved, to give her all the love and care she had once denied her. As they stood together, a family once broken now whole, they knew that their future would be brighter, filled with the warmth of forgiveness and the joy of second chances. One sunny afternoon, Chiamaka's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and saw that it was Chica. After everything that had happened, just seeing her friend's name brought a mix of anger and sadness. She answered the call, keeping her voice steady. Chiamaka, Chica's voice was as cheerful as ever. It's been so long. I was thinking I would come by this weekend to see you. We have so much to catch up on. Chiamaka forced a smile, keeping her true feelings hidden. Sure, Chica, I'll be expecting you. Just let me know when you are on your way. After hanging up, Chiamaka went to find Kenneth and Purity. She needed to tell them about Chica's planned visit. Sitting them down, she shared her intention. Chica is coming this weekend. She said, her voice steady, but I want us to make it clear that she has no place in our lives anymore. She's caused so much harm, and I won't let her get away with it. Kenneth nodded in agreement, his face serious. It's time she understands the pain she caused. She tried to tear our family apart out of jealousy and bitterness. Purity, now understanding the truth about her mother's past and her friend's deceit, looked at them both and nodded. I'm with you, Mom. No one should ever treat people the way she treated us. As the weekend approached, Chiamaka felt both nervous and prepared. She knew it was time to confront Chica, to put an end to the deception and manipulation once and for all. When Saturday morning arrived, Chica came over as planned, carrying a fake smile as if she hadn't done anything wrong. The moment she stepped into the living room, Kenneth and Purity were there, watching her closely. Chica noticed their cold expressions but tried to brush it off, turning to Chiamaka with a bright smile. Chiamaka, it's so good to see you. How's everything been? Chiamaka looked at her friend, her face calm but firm. Chica, I think it's time we have a real conversation. I know everything you did. Chica's smile faded as confusion flashed across her face. What do you mean? Everything I did? She stammered, her voice uncertain. I know how you lied to me, planting doubt in my mind, making me feel like Purity didn't deserve my love. Chiamaka said, her voice steady but full of hurt. You pretended to be my friend while secretly trying to destroy my happiness. You convinced me to hurt my own daughter, all because of your jealousy. You've betrayed me, Chica. Chica's face turned pale, her confidence disappearing. She looked from Chiamaka to Kenneth and then at Purity, who stood beside her parents, strong and silent. She could feel the weight of their disappointment and anger. Trying to defend herself, she said, Chiamaka, I was only looking out for you. I thought you deserved better. Better? Chiamaka's voice was filled with disbelief. Better than the love of my own child? Better than the peace I had in my family? You didn't want what was best for me, Chica. You wanted to ruin my life because you were unhappy with yours. Kenneth stepped forward, his eyes hard. We trusted you as a friend, Chica, but you tried to tear this family apart. You wanted us to suffer, and you almost succeeded. But I won't let you come near us again. You are no friend, only a bitter person who finds joy in others' pain. Chica, realizing she had no defense left, tried to speak, but no words came out. She could see that her actions had left a deep scar, one that couldn't be erased with apologies or excuses. The family she had tried to hurt was standing united, stronger than ever, and she had no place among them. Turning to leave, Chiamaka looked her friend in the eyes one last time. Chika, I hope you learned something from this. True friends don't sow seeds of doubt and bitterness. They uplift, support, and bring joy, not pain. You lost a friend today, but maybe one day you will understand the damage jealousy can do. I pray you find peace within yourself, but stay away from my family. We are done. With those final words, Chika turned and left, her head bowed, knowing she had lost more than she ever realized. She had let her envy consume her, and in the end, it had cost her the friendship she once cherished. After Chika left, Chiamaka looked at her family, feeling a renewed sense of gratitude and strength. She had learned a powerful lesson about trust, about the hidden dangers of jealousy, and about the importance of being cautious with the people we allow into our lives. Not everyone who smiles is a friend, and not everyone who says they care truly has good intentions. Gathering her family close, Chiamaka spoke softly. I've made mistakes, but I've learned so much. Life has shown me that people can be cunning, even those we call friends. But I also know that love and forgiveness are stronger than any lie. Thank you both for standing by me, for forgiving me, and for reminding me of what truly matters. Kenneth placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. We are a family, Chiamaka. Nothing can break us apart as long as we have each other. We face challenges, but together we are stronger. Purity, her heart full of love and forgiveness, hugged her mother tightly. Mom, we've all made mistakes, but I'm proud of you for making things right. Let's move forward together. And with that, they shared a moment of love and unity, knowing that they had overcome the trials set before them. They had been tested, but their bond only grew stronger, built on a foundation of forgiveness, understanding, and trust. And as they stood together, a lesson was clear in their hearts to choose friends wisely, to live with integrity, and to never let jealousy poison the love within a family. Chiamaka felt at peace, knowing she had faced her past, learned from it, and emerged a better person. In the end, they had found true happiness, and as they walked forward, they knew that nothing could ever break the love they shared. And with that, my dear friends, our story comes to a close. But remember, the magic of storytelling lives on, waiting to whisk us away on new adventures, where the wonders of imagination know no bounds. Goodbye for now, and may your dreams be filled with joy, wonder, and endless possibility. Thank you so much for watching. Please kindly comment, like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting stories.